effort you bring every day is critical to our success as well as your individual success.
By virtue of the pass, they've got to get a gap so they get a 2-on-1 and then rotate the ball. They've got a 4.
Send that out, Alex! Good job! Good job!
I think it should be based upon appearance. If the coach is a very attractive woman, then I'd be more likely to give her money. And especially if the coach would recruit highly attractive players, that would raise the attendance numbers. And I think it's important to draw in as big a crowd as possible, so they should also start taking into account the jerseys and, you know, if maybe they would wear higher shorts up on the legs and more of spaghetti straps on the shoulders than the wide bands. But in all seriousness, I think it should be on a pay scale relative to attendance, revenue. I don't know how fundraisers work, but there's always room for expansion there too. But I think that men have more to play for throughout their career just because they have more of a career afterwards, where the WNBA doesn't bring in as much revenue as the NBA. That's definitely a huge hit for females, even though, you know, they could be just as talented as men in the sport. And same goes for the coaches. I think the female coaches could easily have as much success coaching the male team. Like, for example, if you would take Duke's male head coach out and put in Pat Summitt, I think the team would still play as well as they do. But I don't think we're in the generation yet that will have a female coach in a male organization. But I think that day is coming very soon, and it shouldn't be too long until that happens. And then, you know, once that happens, then it will be proven that women coaches will be paid as much as men. So coming in the near future.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because they're coaching the same sport. They should be paid the same. There's not a difference between girls' sports and guys' sports, I don't think, in my mind. They're all played the same. I don't see why not.
Even though men's teams, they fill the seats and they make the big TV contracts?
Yeah, I think so. Just because they don't fill the seats doesn't mean they don't get paid the same. Someone's got to watch them sooner or later.
So do you think it's about putting fans in the seats or the success of the coach?
Success. If you got a good girls coach, why not? Look at Tennessee's coach. She has just as good a record as anyone else in men's sports. I don't see why not.
Yep, she's won 8 NCAA titles, and Bruce Pearl, who's a men's coach, has only made it to Elite 8, and he gets paid $1 million more a year than she does.
See, I don't see that. I think that's right. Tennessee girls probably get just as many fans as the boys' teams do. So I think overall girls' sports are just as important as guys. The WNBA, that's picking up pretty quickly.
My answer to the question is no.
Why is that?
I feel in college sports that a job, what you get paid for a job ought to be equal to what the revenue is taken in from that sport. And women's sports and men's sports are not equal in revenue in most situations in college. So men's programs bring in more revenue than women's sports, so I feel they ought to be compensated differently.
So you feel that Pat Summitt, with her success, that she shouldn't be getting paid as much as Bruce Pearl, who makes $1 million more than she does a year at Tennessee?
Well, not knowing what the revenue is between the two, but I still feel that the men's sports overall will bring in more revenue than the women's sports, so they should be paid in proportionate terms.
So Summitt, her girls, they average $16,000 per game, while Pearl, his average is $20,000 per game. So there is a difference in that.
Yep.
Of course I do.
And why is that?
Are you kidding? Well, because they work just as hard. You know, I believe, well, I'm a big sports enthusiast for number one, and I follow girls and guys sports, but I do think that women in the same sport like for instance basketball, they should get paid the same. I know that the revenue probably isn't the same, but I think they work just as hard and they produce very successful teams just as the men's coaches. So Pat Summitt is one of my very favorite coaches, and I think she is awesome and puts in the time. So yeah, I do.
Did you know that Pat Summitt gets paid $1 million less than Bruce Pearl, who's the head coach at Tennessee?
I didn't know that. Why is that?
I don't know. You'll have to ask them, because she has 8 NCAA titles, won over 1,000 games, and all Bruce Pearl has done is made it to the Elite 8 once.
Oh my gosh. See, that's terrible. Does Pat Summitt know she gets paid less?
I think so, yes.
And is she okay with that?
I don't know.
That's terrible. She should get paid more. She should get paid more than him because of her successes.
So you believe it's success first and then revenue?
I do. Yep. Very much so.
Okay.